Alright guys, so this is the second video in a series of videos where I'm trying to fix my my driving form. Last time I was really focused on making sure my release angles were good as far as the x-axis goes, so left to right. If you saw the last video, I noticed that my reach back was too far inward into my body, and that was causing me to late release or early release a lot because it was hard to maintain the balance going through when I was pulling through my body. And so when I went out to throw this time, I really tried to focus on making sure my reach back did not go too far inward. I also tried to see if I could alleviate the off-axis wobble that was coming because it was my thought that it was because I was pulling too far away from my chest when I pulled through. So I tried to fix those two things. I'm pretty stoked because I think it worked. And I noticed a couple other things in my throw that might bring some more consistency into my game and some more distance. So let's go ahead and take a look at the videos. This first set of videos is going to be all the throws that I did hit my line. And so you can see I set up this grid here. Here's the pole that I'm throwing towards. And I actually have a catch cam set up, you'll see in a second. But one of the things that I noticed right away is if you look at my reach back here, it's definitely not inward anymore. It's over here, pretty much close to over my right foot, but not as far inward as it used to be. And when I pull through, you'll see that it's much closer to my chest, to the point where it's like very little space. Before there was like almost a disc length of space between my chest and the disc. And so one of the things I noticed right away was that the line it takes is almost exactly parallel to the line that my arm starts on. So like here's my line starting with my reach back, and then if you look at the line the disc takes as I pull through, it's almost exactly parallel, which is a really cool revelation because, I mean, I don't know, maybe that's like very obvious for some people, but for me, I did not really even think about that as being a possibility. And here's my catch cam setup. Here's my distances. I did this because there's a football field here sometimes in the fall, and I'm starting at the end zone, front end zone line, where they mark it here, and then this yellow pole here is the back end zone line, and so I think it's 10 yards deep on the end zone. So these are probably not like super exact as far as measurements go, but I did walk out and try to measure them with steps as well. And so this is 330. This is 300, typically like the farthest I'll ever throw, and then this is where I usually end up when I throw. Most of the time I'm actually short of this this infield. And so one thing I noticed right away was that when I threw this way with my reach back being a little bit more far outward, that the line was more consistent that I threw. So here's my reach back again. Here's a line that my arm is traveling down, and you can see it matches that line. I'm not concerned about the height. That's definitely too high. I didn't want to throw it that high, but I'm going to try and fix that in a different video. But I want you to take a look at how much less wobble there is in the disc based on the fact that when I reach out this way, it's not over my left foot. This might be a little too far inward as well, but as I pull through, it's closer to my body, and then there's still a little wobble there, but it's a lot less than there was before. And I noticed immediately that the distances started increasing by like a significant percent, like 10-20% further on my average throw, which is huge. It's like another 30 to 40 feet that I'm throwing. And so we're just going to go ahead and take a look at this one as well. So same thing with this one. You can see that as I step back and my toe comes in, that my arm is here. It's kind of following this line, and the disc follows that same line too. This was an understable disc, and so one of the things I wanted to do was I was trying to throw my understable discs. Yeah, that one went pretty far, 330. Like, I've never thrown that far before. That's amazing for me. One of the things I really wanted to focus on, besides the reach back and the pull through, was looking at the angle of the hyzer throws and the straight flat throws, right? And so this is an understable disc. This is an Archon, and a Star Archon, which I think is a -2 stability, but I threw it flat to see if see what it would happen. And you know, I've never gotten this disc to be able to flip over and then flip back like that. And I think it's got a lot to do with being able to pull through with faster arm speed and getting more speed on the disc, or more rotational inertia, and it's kind of flying the way it's supposed to fly now, instead of just being just a straight hyzer regardless of the stability rating. And so this disc is an understable disc. It's a Leopard, and you can see here I'm starting now to try to also throw some hyzer flips. And first off, right off the bat, here's the angle of my arm coming through before I start pulling through, and you can see it's kind of like matching this way, and that's the way the disc goes. It's so like that. It blows my mind that it was like that's simple as far as like trying to aim the disc is just like the direction that my arm is pointing. It's the opposite direction on that same exact plane that the disc will travel. And the other thing is, look how little wobble there is on this disc as it comes out of my hand. Like that's significantly less wobble. There's still some wobble there. So that actually kind of like is encouraging, because that just means that there's more I can do to fix to get more distance. Like it's not maxing out at this distance here. So there's more stuff I can do to help my form get better and closer to where I want it to be so I can throw further. But yeah, like 300 as an air shot, like that's insane. Like, and it was pretty low. It wasn't even like flying through the air real high. So here's an overstable disc. This is the Star XCal. And I don't know if it's overstable. I think it's just a stable disc. But it's one of the higher speed drivers that I have. And if you take a look here as I set up my throw, there's my line, like it's right, and it's going to just travel right along that line. A little higher than I want it to be, but again, I'm not really worried about the height because I'm going to fix that in a different video. And yeah, an air shot to like 312, 310, and then bouncing to like 318, like that's pretty freaking awesome for me. I'm like amazed that it was like this. It was, I don't want to say simple, but like it was just like, it was just clear. It was obvious almost, but I just never knew that's the direction I'm looking at. So this one, I really started trying to work the hyzer flips, because I have a bunch of understable discs, and that's usually what I threw was understable discs, because I just didn't have the arm speed to throw the stable discs and have them to go straight at all. But I noticed, look at that. I mean, like it just comes out, flips up exactly like it's supposed to, goes down the line that I wanted to go down. One thing I noticed is when I do a hyzer flip, that the angle has to be a little bit closer in. So like the disc ends up traveling straight, but my arm isn't pointing straight. You think that if it was a stable disc that I would want to, it would end up going this way. Because I'm putting such a strong hyzer angle on it, it's going to flip up and just go straight. Travels pretty far. Yeah, and like that hit the ground. But like at 270, like if my average is now like that far, where like almost every throw I threw ended up in the infield, whereas before I would usually fall short of the infield, and then the really good throws would get to the very edge of the sand. And now every throw made it to the infield. I don't think I landed short once in this round, in this set. So here's another throw. You can see here my arm's kind of pointing this way, kind of away towards it, and you can see the disc even kind of travels that path like a little bit. This is a stable, this is the XCal again. And the disc does kind of want to go that way, but because it's such a stable disc, it starts flipping back a little bit and starts correcting itself. And so, again, so much less wobble too. Like look how close the disc is to my body, and then look at the lack of wobble. Like that's amazing. Like I can't believe it made such a big difference. And yeah, throwing 320 feet. This is a rock, and so I think this is the one where I run up. I might do a run up on this one to see what it was like. Yeah, so this one I actually tried to do a run up. Most of them I'm literally just taking an X step and then planning and throwing, because I didn't want to mess with the form, but I thought I'd try doing a run up. And yeah, like look at that. Like this one also, like almost no wobble. I feel like this one came out super smooth. Look at that. Like there's no wobble on this one. And look at the direction of my arm, the way I'm throwing a little bit of hyzer on it, because this rock has gotten beat up and it's a little bit unstable, or it's gotten less stable, I should say. But look at the direction of my arm, and then look at the direction it flies. It's like perfectly parallel. It's amazing. Here's the direction of my arm, right here, going like this, and here's the direction the disc is going to fly. It's just like exactly down that line. And I threw that rock almost 300 feet. Like I've never been able to throw the mid-range past like 250. And now it's going there. And, you know, that was a run-up. The lack of wobble is like fixing that problem was really surprising that that's all it took. Now this one you can see here, I've got this reached in way too far, but I'm also trying to put the hyzer on it. I think I ended up turning it over, so I'm not exactly sure what I did wrong there. I want to take a look more at that, but look at the distance this one travels. Like that one went way past 330, probably like closer to like 340, maybe like 336. Here's another hyzer flip that I'm trying to do. Again, here's my angle. Look at that severe hyzer that I'm putting on it, but here's the angle of the arm kind of pointing inward, and it just flips up. I mean, like that's awesome. And this was like super consistently repeated. Like this is what I noticed when I put all of them together, like every single time. It's this angle of my arm. On the hyzer flip, it's pointing this way. It should just kind of flip up and go straight. So this is like super encouraging because, you know, for a while I was throwing and I was just thinking that I wasn't ever going to be able to throw above 300 feet. Like I would always throw max out at like 280, even on like the hardest throws, like running up, throwing it, hucking it as hard as I can, and then just taking some random path that I didn't intended to take, but it would just fly up and go. And now I feel like I'm consistently throwing in the right direction, which is over here. I'm consistently getting into here. Sometimes it's going over here if it's a hyzer flip and it kind of like turns over on me. But looking at my arm, like look at that. That's like such a clear-cut example. And this wasn't even me running into it. This is just stepping up with a single accept without any kind of huge momentum build. And there's my arm. And look at the path the disc goes. It's like exactly parallel. Again, getting over 270. Here's the direction of my arm, going straight this way. And it's just like exactly where I wanted it to go. All right. So here are all the throws that ended up going wide right, that went the wrong direction for me, that didn't exactly hit this window. Some of them kind of do hit the window, but I tried to be really judicious in saying, like, was that the line that I was trying to throw, and being honest with myself as far as, like, knowing that I'm actually just trying to hit this tight gap here, somewhere in one of these three squares, and if it went over here to say, like, okay, that wasn't exactly what I want to do, I would probably have hit a tree in any kind of tight tunnel throw if it was in one of these windows. And so I want to take a look at what's going on here. So right away, as I reach back, you can see my arm is kind of pointing in this direction to the right. Instead of pointing this way with the reach back, it's pointing this way, right? And that's the way the disc is traveling. And that one kind of goes. I mean, it flips back, but like that one was short too. I mean, that one was like usually where I ended up throwing. I think that might have been like one of the warm-up throws that I threw. Again, look at my direction of my arm. It's pointing this way, right? And sure enough, that's the direction that this goes. Now, it was too low. Again, I'm not looking for fixing the y-axis or the height. I'm really looking at only the x-axis. I'm going to try and fix the y-axis. I actually think I know what the problem is with the y-axis, and it's when I go to pull through, if there's angle like this, then when I turn it, it's going to be up like that. And on stable disc, it's not going to flip up. It's just going to go sail into the air. Like that one did too. The whole point being like the angle of my arm. I don't even extend my arm out on this one. This is just a bad throw. I think I just totally armed that one. I mean, that went pretty far. Probably like 280. Far from me, at least. Same thing with this one, right? Like, if you look at my arm, it's pointing in this direction. It's not pointing in this direction. And it goes right there, parallel right with my line. And that one went almost 300 too. Like, once it's at the back of that infield, that's like 330. Again, this was super consistent, like super consistent way to predict the line based upon this moment here of where I'm looking to throw. My arm is pointing in this direction. The disc goes in that direction. You know, and that's like, it's just one thing that I never really thought about was how to aim the disc. Like, and when it came down to it, like if I was playing it around, I really had no idea how to aim it other than like kind of putting my arm out saying, well, this is where I kind of feel like I want to let it go. Instead of thinking like, well, how am I setting up my body to make sure that when I bring my arm around, it ends up over there. And this, you know, I haven't actually gone out and played around since I've kind of figured this out, but I'm really excited to go out and try it to see if it makes any sense. Now, the one thing I noticed about this is specifically when I go to throw is it's really contingent upon me doing my throwing mechanics the correct way that I'm supposed to do it. And so like if I engage the wrong muscles, or I don't use my hips enough, or I don't turn my body around the right way, then it's not going to really follow along this idea of following this plane that my arm is on. Let me show you what I mean by that, because there's a bunch of examples where I early release too. So here's where I early released. This is a little harder to tell because it's not the line of the arm. A lot of times on these throws, the arm line is good. Like the arm line looks good here, right? It looks like it should go here. But what I noticed is if I start engaging my elbow and my arm first before I engage my hips and my shoulder, you can see here right away I started bending my elbow before I started turning my shoulder. That's causing me to early release. And that was the most consistent thing that I saw. I'm not exactly sure if that's the real problem or not, but I think that's the issue, is if I start turning, if my elbow starts to bend before my shoulder starts to turn in, right? So there it is. It's going to early release. It's still, actually, I think that one was okay. I think it just, my arm was pointing in the wrong direction. Yeah, so you can see even here my arm is pointed in that direction, and that's the way the disc is going to fly. So all of these throws didn't go that far. I don't think any of them. Oh, that one did kind of get to the infield. That's the other thing that I noticed, though. Even on the bad throws, my distances were still better. Were still farther. I probably hit a tree in a real match, but. So again, this one, the arm kind of looks like it's pointing in the right direction, but if I engage my elbow first, like turning my elbow up, trying to pull through with my arm instead of using my hips and my shoulder to turn, it's going to early release. I'm going to pick up my discs now. There I go. Yeah, so, I don't know. Something I noticed. Let me know if you guys also kind of experience this kind of thing when you throw, or if you go out and try to do some field work, if that's the kind of thing you notice as well. The next thing I'm going to try to do is fix my Y-axis throws, so like the height of the disc. And I think I know what the problem is, but I'm not exactly sure. I think it has something to do with where my arm starts and where it ends, and how the angle of the disc is as it's coming across my body. And so hopefully I can figure that out, and that'll be the next thing that I try to work through. All right, thanks, guys.